Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. You've got me and Rick here online. Unfortunately, we were not able to come into the office, but we needed to get this info out to you as quickly as possible. We had some developments happening in San Jose last week, and we've got another big one here in Santa Ana, which is in Orange County. Rick, you wanna delve this out a little bit?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is the Giffords group making an attack on all corners of the state. They're trying to remove your rights, make it onerous, and as Kevin and I've said numerous times, destroy the culture of gun ownership. And a lot of what they're doing is just flat out unconstitutional. In the case of San Jose, California Rifle Pistol Association has told them for 2 years it's unconstitutional. We've literally warned them and said, do this, you're breaking the Constitution, you're going to end up in a costly court battle. And Kevin, as you know, with literally hundreds of people calling in saying this is not what we want, and a half a dozen people from the Giffords group saying, no, this is what you want, the city council went with the minority.
Yeah, it was pretty painful listening to that city council meeting after an hour and a half with an overwhelming majority of people calling in saying, please don't pass this ordinance, with one of the city council members literally coming out and saying, this is going to do nothing for my district. They still felt like it was necessary. You know, you've got a few people making an ordinance for a lot of people, and it's pretty scary when they're not listening to their own citizens.
I think there's 2 clear points that we need to give people when you're talking to your friends and other members of the community and people that are going to say stuff. The first thing that the mayor of San Jose kept coming out with was it's the comparison of this is no different than auto insurance. And that is one of the biggest lies out there. And it helped you be able to explain that, because to a layperson it can sound very similar. But the difference is I do not have a fundamental right under the Constitution to drive a car. I do have a fundamental right under the Constitution to have a firearm in my possession. And there are very specific, many cases Supreme Court have upheld that there's a restriction on taxing a fundamental constitutional right. And so that's what makes it different from car insurance. So that's not out there. Secondly is they're trying to protect themselves by forming a nonprofit, as you know, Kevin, because the idea is that the nonprofit, they're the ones doing everything, not us, the city, but the nonprofit is functioning on behalf of the city. It's set up by the city. So that's patently false. And the final thing is they keep saying, well, this is all going to go to provide, mental health for the people that own firearms. Okay, so number one, as you know, Kevin, criminals don't purchase firearms. They're not going to purchase firearms, insurance in the city of San Jose. So you're literally taxing law-abiding citizens for something they're not doing.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely purchase firearms. It's just that what we found is that they don't purchase firearms legally. And if they're not going to purchase their firearms legally, it's pretty apparent they're not going to get the liability insurance that's mandated for people who have legally purchased those firearms. I think it's also interesting, we saw in the city council meeting, a lot of people do say phrases like God-given rights. As we understand it, those God-given rights are acknowledged but not given to us by our government through the Constitution. And we had kind of one of those city council members spitting on that by saying that she had been to Sunday school, she'd read the Quran, she's read the Bible, and she doesn't see anything about our right to have firearms. Apparently what she forgot to read was the Constitution, which is really what does guarantee those things. And yeah, I mean, they came out and basically said they don't have a plan for implementation, they don't have a plan for enforcement. They just want to make sure that this law is on the books, as we've seen so many times in the past, so that they can enforce it basically when they want to. And that's what becomes really scary here. Are you going to be one of those people that they want to enforce that on? Are you not? It's really their game to tell. Something else that was really interesting was that they basically had no accountability measures for the nonprofit. They talked about it at length. By what means is the nonprofit going to report to the state the amount of people that are on the liability insurance, the enforcement of that insurance, and the information they had was basically nothing. So if you remember, the famous Nancy Pelosi quote of saying, hey, I've got this 1,000-page bill for health insurance. If you want to know what's in it, you got to pass it. you kind of have that same sentiment here. They have nothing set up but an idea, and they want to enforce those ideas through a local ordinance. It's really a bad measure. Even if they were going to try and get this implemented correctly, they haven't taken the steps, but they still think it's on themselves to pass it because they know what's best for their community, even though their community is shouting out against it. This is kind of top drawer, one of the most erroneous things that we've seen in a while. Not necessarily surprising that it's coming out of San Jose, but here's where we are, and we're going to be fighting against it.
And I think it's important that everybody realizes, San Jose, as you know, Kevin, started off with the safe storage rules from Giffords and other groups like that, where they're literally writing the law. Like, these people aren't even coming up with this on their own. It's an outside group that's coming up and saying, hey, pass this. And they're like, oh, okay, because they think it's going to make it more popular. And this is why it's so important for all of you out there that are watching this channel, that are participating with the California Rifle Pistol Association, that you call us when you see anything. And why I say, what do you see? Well, it could be inside your utility bill from your city. We'll say, oh, we're going to be discussing this. You need to let us know so we can get involved like we're doing in Santa Ana, because it starts off with the safe storage and then it just comes down this pipeline. They have a chain that they're trying to come after us, and we need to stand up and do it. The one thing I will say, Kevin, on your point about the lady, the city councilwoman who did discuss, religious texts, it is ironic that many people on the far left will quote those religious texts when it's convenient. Yes, the term firearm wasn't even in existence when those texts were written, but the terms of self-protection were, and there's a multitude of examples where those versions of God had said that humans should protect themselves, should stand alert, should be prepared for the wolves in the night. So I think that falls flat if you're really being serious.
Yeah, and I really have a big issue with the way these things are projected to the public, and we've seen this. We really got to dive into Santa Ana because that's coming up as well. But, these people campaign on lowering, things like gun violence and making those who should be accountable pay. We tend to think of the criminal justice system when it comes to that. These city council members pretty openly admitted that this liability insurance will not cover crime. It's basically reduced to somebody playing with their firearm in their backyard and accidentally shooting themselves or their friend, which, we in the firearms community understand that that's pretty rare because we have safety in such high regard in the first place. But when it comes to actually helping people, this isn't going to do that. So, it's been promoted very disingenuously, and it's not really looking like it's going to help. And I don't see how it can help when they have so much of their plan that's not even instated yet. They don't have it yet. So it's really bad that something like this can end up passing with such little effort and work put into it.
And on the subject of Santa Ana, I know we're going to get a lot of people that are going to call in and say, well, are you going to sue these people? Are you going to do this? Folks, yes, we're chomping at the bit to do it. So you're going to say, okay, then why aren't you doing it today? And the reason is we already have a lawsuit that has been seen at the Court of Appeals for 2 years. It's called Kirk v. Morgan Hill, because Morgan Hill was the first city that started to do this. We expect a favorable ruling in that, and we expect that the state will probably try, or the city of Morgan Hill in this case, will probably try to go ahead and appeal it, and fine, we'll take it to Supreme Court and we'll win there, because it's just flat out unconstitutional to do what they're doing. But right now, what we need are people in Orange County, especially in the surrounding counties, to be calling the city of Santa Ana and saying, you can't do this, this is wrong. And we're going to have in the description below some of the talking points and some of the reference points so you can make those calls. But
yeah,
folks,
and a way to get in touch here for those of you who don't know, tomorrow, February 1st, the Santa Ana City Council is holding a meeting. That meeting opens up at 5:45 p.m. One of the items that they're going to be discussing is they are going to be discussing whether or not they're going to direct staff to put a report together to create a safe storage ordinance. And this is why, we need to talk about places like San Jose, because while San Jose just filed or created that ordinance for liability insurance for firearms owners, what started in San Jose was this exact same thing, a safe storage ordinance. And that was back in 2017. And this has always been ironic to me because, you know, they use words like safe, and this is something that we always kind of rag on. I mean, really what they should call it is, let's make sure anybody who intrudes into your house is safe. But it's pretty overwhelming with what the polls state. The overwhelming reason that people purchase firearms is to protect themselves in their home. And when you create a safe storage ordinance like this, you basically take those people's rights to their firearms and to protect themselves away from them by creating obstacles like it needs to be in a locked safe. When seconds matter, these things matter too. And this is why we end up being against something that's called a safe storage ordinance.
And folks, if you haven't already, please subscribe, stay with us, because the fight for your rights is heating up already here in 2022. You're going to see a lot more of these alerts, unfortunately, but fortunately, we're building the numbers, we're building together, and we're pushing back, and we're getting some wins. And we'll tell you about the fights, and we'll tell you on the wins in future episodes.